Good evening. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisors meeting to order, and if we can all rise to pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Quirple.
Mr. Tosti?
Here.
Mr. Kizak?
Here.
Ms. Strauss?
Here.
Ms. Kane?
Here.
We also have Mrs. Cooley-Coles, Township Manager, Township Solicitor, Mr. Esposito, and Township Engineer, Mr. Kessler, in attendance tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Quirple. Residents are encouraged to provide feedback to the Board of Supervisors before and during public meetings. Anyone providing public comment must begin by stating their name, address for the record. Public comment during the meeting can be made via Zoom and in person. Residents will be able to join the Zoom meeting audience online or by dialing in. Online participants can find tonight's meeting link on the Township website. Dial-in participants can participate in tonight's meeting by calling 1-301-715-8592 and entering the meeting ID, which is 867-9190-5582, followed by the pound sign. To make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. When you are called on, dial *6 to unmute yourself. In-person participants may stand up and speak at the podium when prompted with their mask on. Number 2, announcements and special items. Our next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, June 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in this room. Letter B, proclamation designating May 15th, 2021 as National Police Officers Day. The Township of Middletown has a proclamation for Police Officers Memorial Day. Whereas Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And whereas members of the Township Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Middletown Township. Whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the Middletown Police Department has grown to be modern and progressive law enforcement agency which unceasingly provides a vital public service, now therefore be it proclaimed that the month of May be designated as Police Month in Middletown Township, with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our residents may join in commemorating police officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to the communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an inviolable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Be it further proclaimed that Saturday, May 15, 2021, is hereby designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day to honor those peace officers who, through their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or have become disabled in performance of duty. Proclaimed this 3rd day of May, 2021 by the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Next is a proclamation designating May 4th, 2021 as International Firefighters Day. Whereas firefighters risk their lives to protect the life and property and to ensure their communities are safe. And whereas on December 2nd, 1998, firefighters responded to a wildfire in Linton, Australia. When the fire unexpectedly changed course, 5 volunteer firefighters, Gary Ridable, Chris Evans, Stuart Davison, and Jason Thomas and Matthew Armstrong tragically lost their lives. Whereas J.J. Edmondson, a volunteer lieutenant and firefighter in Victoria, Australia, was moved by this tragedy and set out to organize a day of support for all firefighters around the world. Whereas J.J. coordinated international discussion with firefighters organizations for an appropriate date and symbol to commemorate the sacrifices firefighters make. And whereas May 4th was eventually chosen as the date for International Firefighters Day, many European countries had traditionally recognized the contributions of firefighters on May 4th to coincide with the feast day of Saint Florian, the patron saint of firefighters. And whereas the symbol for International Firefighters Day is red and blue ribbons pinned together, with red representing fire and blue representing water, to signify the elements firefighters work with every day. And whereas on May 4th, people are encouraged to attend memorials or display red and blue ribbons to show support for the firefighters around the world and to thank them for helping their communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors, Middletown Township, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, that the Board hereby recognizes May 4th, 2021 as International Firefighters Day for the purpose of honoring sacrifices made by the firefighters in Pennsylvania and around the world. Proclaim this 3rd day of May, 2021. Next, we have Dr. Gerald C. Wydrow. He is going to do a presentation on Stroke Awareness Month. Dr. Wydrow.
Thank you, Supervisor Chairman Tossi and members of the Board of Supervisors, and Stephanie for inviting me to come and do this. Is there a clicker, or should I just say thank you? So it's great to be here and not be talking about COVID. This is a rare opportunity. I'll be very, very quick, but I give you this opportunity because this is Stroke Awareness Month, and this is something that I think we have great opportunity as a community to really engage around. You know, stroke is one of those things that many of us don't think about until it happens, and as we'll talk about very briefly, the impact on our loved ones, on our community is real. You know, bottom line is, we want everyone to realize that a stroke is a real disease, has real impact on people and their lives and their livelihood. There are different types of strokes, and the important part for us to remember is that many of them have risk factors that can be modified or controlled. The facts are about 800,000 people every year have a stroke, but more importantly, the impact of that is that one of the leading causes of disability. In addition to that, as I said, there are many risk factors, things like tobacco use, high blood pressure, uncontrolled diabetes. I call your attention to the one that's most concerning. Time is critical, right? They say that time is brain and stroke, and a patient who's having a stroke can age themselves approximately 4 years in terms of cognitive or physical impact for an hour of ischemia or lack of blood supply to the brain. That's obviously a very important thing for anybody at any age, but certainly as we get older as well. And most importantly, all the treatment interventions for stroke are time sensitive. So we want our community to know how to recognize a stroke. Sadly, half the patients that I see in the emergency department don't come by ambulance. They choose to come by car or some other way. One of our opportunities is to educate the community around that. You see that FAST acronym there, which is face, arm weakness, speech difficulty, and time, ends with time, and call 911. We want people to be comfortable that if they suspect they're having a stroke, they should call 911 to get to the hospital as quickly as possible. So time is brain. I call your attention to that upper right corner there, that picture. That's an ambulance. That's a community service between Ben Salem EMS, Bucks County Emergency Health Services, and Jefferson Health. That's a mobile stroke unit. That mobile stroke unit is something that brings timely care, and we'll talk about it in a sec here, to the patients that we serve. It serves members of Middletown Township and Langhorne and surrounding communities and comes in every day. And some of our major success stories have been giving the clot-busting drug at the patient's front door within 20 minutes of arrival. Quite miraculous. So we want our patients to know how to recognize a stroke. We want our hospitals and EMS systems to know how to get them to the right hospital to the right time, and we want our hospitals to provide rapid care. So what we've seen developing across our systems of care, and EMS is a critical part of that. Our hospitals are a critical part of that. And I'll just show you here on the right there. That's actually an app that I have on my phone, and many of the members of our stroke team do. And it actually allows us to see a patient who's having a stroke, the CAT scan that's going on, and I can actually look at that in real time and see if there's evidence of a stroke and alert the right members of the team. As importantly, here's the mobile stroke unit. And again, this is dual dispatched on strokes in Middletown Township. So Penndale Middletown will go, as will the mobile stroke unit when the mobile stroke unit's in service. And as you can see there, there's a CAT scan actually in the back. And then there's one of our, Dr. Jabor is the person on the screen there, providing a neurologic assessment to determine whether that person needs treatment, such as the clot-busting drug TPA. So what can we do as a community is what I am here to bring home. I want people to be aware of stroke. We want them to know about BFAST. If you have a change in balance, your vision, if you have facial weakness, difficulty speaking, arm weakness, we want you to call 911 to be evaluated for a possible stroke. Our paramedics are trained, and we want our community to be trained. And I thank you for the opportunity to be here for a few minutes to talk about stroke and stroke care. Penndale Middletown's here, as is your EMS system. Thank you for the opportunity, and have a great rest of your day.
If you can hold on 1 second. First, I'd like to thank you for this great information. I lost my father to a stroke a little over 3.5 years ago, and I think if some of them signs were, if we seen them signs, maybe he could still be with us today. So I really appreciate this, and it's very useful, and if it can save one life here in Middletown Township, it's well worth having you here. And before you go, Ms. Teoli Coles does have something she wants to say.
We wanted to take the opportunity, since you were here, Dr. Wydrow, to say a few words. Chief Barbarilla and Jim McGuire and I all would like to, with the Board of Supervisors, recognize you for the efforts that you have made to help us over the last year. In addition to being the chairman of Jefferson ER Division, in addition to volunteering your time as medical director for the rescue squad, Dr. Wydrow also every week through the pandemic provided us, in the midst of changing guidelines, with just a consistent voice to help us, to guide us as we were making decisions about our employees and keeping our employees safe. So we really wanted to recognize you and thank you. We have a small gift for you, and thanks. And Chief and Jim are going to come up and say a few words as well.
Thank you very much. You certainly didn't need to do that. It's my privilege to be, as a community member and someone with Penndale Middletown forever. But thank you so much. You're welcome. Certainly not needed, but thank you.
Dr. Wydrow has been an invaluable resource for us over the last year and a half as COVID started to approach, asking questions, trying to get prepared, and then once COVID fully hit, we were talking with him probably 2 or 3 times a week at least, and him giving us great, valuable data, helping our staff, helping our residents just get through that process. So that was a huge help for us.
And I'll just add that we were the first police department in Bucks County to get hit with COVID last year. And I know Dr. Wydrow remembers well this very room. He took time out of his busy schedule to come on his own and test 7 of our officers who were exposed. He was an invaluable resource to the police department. I also do want to thank Dr. Darren Gerasimus, the Chief of Emergency Medicine at St. Mary Medical Center, and Dr. Dave Damsker. Between the 3 of them, Dr. Damsker, Dr. Gerasimus, and Dr. Wydrow, they were invaluable in helping our police department overcome what could have been a big time run of infections through our department. We were able to really curtail that thanks to the good guidance and advice of Dr. Wydrow and the other 2 doctors that I mentioned. So I thank you very much, Doctor, and also thank you for taking the time to reach out to any officers who had called and asked for any kind of medical advice when they were home with COVID. So that means a lot to us, means a lot to our police department. So thank you.
Again, I appreciate that. It's a privilege to be a member of your team, and certainly with the Penndale Middletown Emergency Squad I've been with for 36 years. And have always seen myself as a potential asset, and I'm glad. I think the pandemic brought that forward. Certainly not needed, but thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you to all of you for the recognition, and I appreciate it.
Well, again, we'd like to thank you as a board and as a community for all you've done and what you're doing even through the county. So thanks for everything you do. Very
Thank you so
valuable
much.
asset to us.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public comment for non-agenda items only. Mr. Bailey? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. Letter A, consideration of authorizing payment of May 3rd, 2021 bill list in the amount of $1,021,085. Letter B, consideration of approving the April 19, 2021 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Letter C, consideration of approving resolution number 21-15R, Act 537, Oxford Valley Multifamily Redevelopment Planning Module. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda items?
Move to accept the agenda items.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seeing a motion and a second, is there any board questions? Any public questions? Hello, can you just state your name and your address, please? For letter C you're talking about? That is just the application from the Cornerstone Tracy. Oh, good. You want to handle it, Mr. Ennis?
Yeah, thank you. So that would be to approve the amendment of our sewage treatment plan to allow the Oxford Valley apartments to tie in, and would then go to DEP for approval.
Were you able to understand that? Yes, it's. Thank you. Stay safe. Any other public comment, Mr. Bell?
You're all set.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda items. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Number 5, consideration of authorizing the purchase of an on-site kennel for the police department from the Barn Raiser LLC at a cost of $15,500. Chief?
Good evening, Mr. Tosti, fellow board members. Real briefly, before I get to the capital purchase request, I just want to thank you for recognizing May 15th as National Police Officers Memorial Day. I do want to mention, for us as a police department, Monday, May 17th is actually Bucks County Police Memorial Day. Unlike last year when we had the COVID pandemic, this year we are going to have our noon service again just outside our building, honoring Detective Chris Jones. And also at 7 p.m., we will have the county-wide memorial mass at St. Andrew Roman Catholic Church in Middletown Township. So tomorrow, everyone on the board will be getting your invitations to the noon service if you can make it. Thank you for that. All right, now moving on to our kennel purchase. So as discussed in previous budget years and discussed this year in the 2021 capital budget, The police department is requesting a 3-run kennel for stray dogs. We receive as a police department about 400 animal calls annually. At least 25% of those involve stray dogs. Just over this past weekend, we had 3. Most strays are runaway dogs that we can't immediately identify, and they're usually claimed within 24 to 48 hours. The challenge for us is when they're found after hours, the officers oftentimes can't place the dogs. The only place that we could bring them is to the SPCA in Lahaska, and if it's 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning, a lot of times they don't answer the phone. So what we have to do is we have to wake up our animal control officer. She comes in, stays with the dog for several hours, and then makes the phone calls to try to get the dog placed at different area shelters where she has the connections. So having an on-site kennel will alleviate that issue for us. And the other issue that it will solve for us is a couple of times a year, we do have what are deemed dangerous dogs by the court. By law, we are supposed to house those dogs until the court adjudicates the case. We don't have the ability to do that now. The SPCA will not take those dogs. So what we do now is we just leave the dangerous dog with the owner with the promise that they won't let the dog get out again. And a lot of times that doesn't work. That's why the dogs are deemed dangerous in the first place. So to give you an idea, I did enclose a brief memo explaining the number of times we would use the stray kennel. In 2018, there would have been 36 occasions where we had stray dogs. 2019, 52, and last year, 40. The others are for other animals that we occasionally get that we would have to keep for 24 to 48 hours. There was a time where the township did have a stray kennel. It is down at the DPW lot. It is we can't rehab it at this point. It's just basically not worth it for the price that we're getting new structure. Plus, this structure is going to go into the secure police lot. The bids on this structure were based on the dimensions of it fitting inside our lot. It comes pre-built. This was the only company that could make us a 3-run kennel and have it fit inside our secure yard. The other feature that this kennel has is it has a small little entry room that the ACO, CSO, or officers can enter, where they're not immediately opening the door and having a dog come right at them. It has a small, like 4x4 feed room. So DPW has already helped us with the dimensions so that we know it'll fit inside our secure yard. They're going to assist us with the site preparation and the finishing work. The kennel will have electricity, heat, air conditioning, and a water line hookup because the SPCA does have to come after it's installed, and they have to certify it before we can use it. So if the board has any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Yeah, I have, I think this is a good idea. It will relieve the officers from driving to Lahaska if they have to, or even having to bring in our animal control officer. But how many animals will it be able to hold at one time?
Well, it's a 3-run kennel. I believe we're going to use 2 runs for dogs and 1 run for whatever the others are. But we could use 3 for the dogs if need be. I was going to have our ACO here. I didn't have her here. She'd probably be able to answer that a little better because she's the one that's going to administer. But it's a 3-run kennel. Okay. So they're separate. They can't view each other. So it's not like they're going to be attacking each other. They're going to be separate from each other in the 3 runs. So we're not going to have dogs attacking each other or going after each other. They won't even be able to see each other. It'll be an inside, and it'll have a small outside area as well. So they'll be able to stay in or out if need be.
How long do we house the big?
So,
because I know like a lot of them are probably just local people just looking for
they
their
are.
dog.
Most of our strays, we get phone calls within the first 24 hours. We just can't identify them because not every dog has a tag like they should have, or sometimes they're not wearing it. And the owner will call and say, you know, I lost my dog. This is what it looks like. Oh, we had it last night. We brought it all the way up to Lahaska. They have to go all the way up to Lahaska. So one of the interesting things, I did a lot of research on this. We actually, our code of ordinances, it's a little bit dated. It's about 23 years old. We have a pretty comprehensive prohibiting dogs running at large ordinance in our code, our township code. So We are to keep the dogs for, depending on why we have them. Strays, it's up to 48 hours, and then dangerous dogs, it's until the court adjudicates it up to 5 days. So we're not going to be a long-term shelter by any means. The purpose of having the kennel is just if an officer comes across a stray after hours, to get the stray into the kennel until the ACO can come in either the next day or next business day and then get the dog more permanently placed if it hasn't already been claimed yet. So it's a very temporary shelter for any strays that we find.
Yeah, I didn't care either way. I just think it's a good idea. This way our residents don't have to go to Lahaska to pick up their animal if that happens, so.
It is. We definitely need it.
Any other board questions for the chief? Is there a motion?
I move to authorize the purchase of, moved on to trucks. The purchase of an on-site kennel from the Barn Raiser LLC in the amount of $15,500.
I'll second.
Seeing a motion and a second, is there any board questions? Any public questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti.
Moving on to number 6, DPW vehicle purchases. There's 3 of them, and I'll read all 3. Letter A, consideration of authorizing purchase of a utility truck for $87,766 for Chapman Ford. Letter B, consideration of authorizing purchase of a pickup truck for $45,708 from Chapman Ford. And letter C, consideration of purchase of a Kaufman landscape trailer from H.A. Deerhart and Son in the amount of $12,680.
Good morning,
Mr. Gar-
board members.
Mr. Gartmeister.
Good afternoon. So the 3 items you have in front of us were budgeted in this year's budget. The trailer was actually from last year that we put off to this year. We did go to CoStars, and we actually got different pricing from a couple different vendors on this. As you well know, probably getting vehicles at this time is very hard with the COVID and microchips and all this other stuff. So basically, the utility truck that we would like to purchase will have a plow, obviously. This one's going to have a salt spreader in the back of it also. So the goal is that everybody goes out, has some salt on the truck, so we don't, have to run back or have people track back and try to salt when somebody just plowed. So that was something new that we added for this truck. It is replacing a 15-year-old truck, which has rust and mechanical problems. That truck is 15 years old. The pickup truck is will replace a 21-year-old vehicle that also has mechanical problems and rust. So that truck also is equipped with a plow also. And then the trailer is 23 years old, believe it or not, and it's time to get replaced. It's getting unsafe, and the amount of work we need to do to fix it outweighs getting a new one. And the new one is enclosed to keep all the zero turns and all the equipment inside the trailer. I hate to say it, but we had things taken off the trailer while the guys are out cutting with the open landscaping trailers. So it helps us out, keeping them out of the weather also. So they are the 3 items that, with your approval, we would like to purchase.
Any questions for Mr. Gartmeyer? Do we have to do these individually?
Can do them together if you want.
I'll make a motion. I move to authorize the purchase of one 2021 F550 chassis 4x4 SD regular cab XL from Chapman Ford of Horsham, one Federal Signal 53-inch amber light bar from 10-8 Emergency Vehicle Service, and one two-way radio from Lycom Communications of Bristol for a total of $87,766. I also move to authorize the purchase of one 2021 Ford Super Duty F250 SRW XL four-wheel drive reg cab 8-foot box from Chapman Ford of Horsham, PA, one Federal Signal 53-inch amber light bar, from 10-8 Emergency Vehicle Service, New Holland, Pennsylvania, 1 two-way radio from Lycom Communications, Bristol, Pennsylvania, 1 accessory to be ordered after vehicle delivery not to exceed $1,200 for a total of $45,708. And finally, I move to authorize the purchase of 1 Kaufman model FEN-2/5.2K to 8.5X 20D deluxe enclosed 5.2K axle 8.5 by 20-foot trailer from H.A. DeHart & Son, Thoroughfare, New Jersey, for a total of $12,680.
I'll second.
Seeing a motion and a second, is there any board questions? Any public questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No? Ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you, it's
Mr.
much
Gartmeyer.
appreciated.
Number 7, consideration of authorizing settlement regarding the Durham Ridge development. Mr. Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. So Durham Ridge is an approximately 30-lot residential subdivision located along Durham Road that received land development approval from the township back in 2007. The developer ran into some issues, and the township became aware in 2016 that some of the required public improvements remained incomplete or unacceptable. The developer ultimately failed to complete the work, so the township stepped in and completed the public improvements on behalf of the subdivision, which included road paving, stormwater management, landscaping, and some concrete work. The developer did post the required financial security for a land development in the form of a performance bond. So after the township completed the work, we did call upon the bonding company to reimburse the township for the work. The bonding company did dispute some of the work that was completed by the township was not covered under the bond. We've been working with the bonding company ever since, and we think we have a proposal from them that we would suggest that the township accept. The bonding company has offered to pay the township $163,317.25 to settle this matter. We do believe that this amount covers largely the amount of the work that the township did that should have been covered under the bond. So our suggestion is to accept this offer. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
No, I'll make a motion to authorize the solicitor to enter into a comprehensive settlement and general release agreement with Lexon Insurance Company, now owned by Sampo International, for surety bond number 1056810 for the construction project known as Durham Ridge, project number 03-19, for consideration paid from Lexon Insurance Company to Middletown Township in the amount of $163,317.25.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any board comments? I would like to say, Mr. Esposito, I would really like to thank you for your work on this. When me and Ms. Strauss got elected, this was something that we had brought up because when we were out there knocking on doors, the neighbors really wanted this completed. And we did, as a township, completed. We stepped up and helped them out. But we have been battling this insurance company and this bond issue since we've been on the board. And when you came on, you took it on yourself to do it and get it done. So I would really like to thank you for seeing this through.
You're very welcome, and I will say it was largely at your encouragement.
I was just going to pile on with something very similar, Mr. Esposito. I want to thank Mr. Tosti for continuing to keep after this fight. I remember when I commend the residents as well for coming in and letting us know, like, this hasn't been done, this is how we're living, this is unacceptable, and really pushing the board to get the repairs and neighborhood fixes done at risk to the township, which we did. And then Mr. Tosti really has been the one who's been fighting to make sure that we get those taxpayer dollars back that we were owed from the bond. And so thank you so much for pushing for this, not just for the residents, but for the township to recover those taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Thanks again, Mr. Esposito. Thanks, Ms. Strauss. Next on the agenda is number 8, Stormwater Management Presentation, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Chairman Tosti. Good evening, Board. Each year, as part of our MS4 program for the township, which is our permit with DEP, we present some topics at a public meeting for education to township residents and the board and staff, along with some other events we do throughout the year with staff to provide information about our stormwater management and some of the goals and objectives that we have. So this evening, we'll just touch upon some of those tonight. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Each year, we kind of have a refresher of what MS4 stands for. It helps me as well, as I'm always asked the question, and it's a Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. The 4 S's is where that MS4 comes from. And it's really the goal of keeping our sewage separate from our storm drains and our rainwaters. The sewage, obviously, is meant to go to the treatment plants, the storm drains to the waterways, and keeping those separate, really both ways. You don't want extra water going to your treatment plant that will tax your operations there and cause issues with overflows, as well as obviously you don't want sewage that winds up going towards your waterways. So that's the overarching goal of an MS4 program. Our township, we have 2 main watersheds and a few sub-watersheds. So the 2 main ones, I'm sure people are aware of, the Neshaminy Creek is our major one on the west side of the township, and then the east side of the township flows eventually towards the Delaware River. And this part of Bucks County, it's called the Delaware River South. The areas on that side, you have the Mill Creek and Queen Anne, eventually go to Delaware River. Neshaminy Creek obviously has its area that flows to there, and Court Creek makes its way that direction as well. So the goals of our program is to continue to improve the township's waterways, have events like this and other stormwater flyers and events throughout the year to inform the public, really reducing our pollutants to these waterways for the quality of life that we strive for around the township. We do work with the fire marshal and DPW and a lot of the staff. Really, every department has a little bit of a role in the work we do throughout the year to ensure that we track any kind of spills or pollutant issues, as well as when things are under construction, we work to make sure that it has the proper controls to avoid dirts and debris going into streets and into the sewers. Overall, the management of our stormwater and drainage infrastructure really contributes to what we do from the board and for the township throughout the year. So projects such as the Langhorne Gables project now with stormwater issues that we try to alleviate getting water out of areas that are prone to flooding. The basin retrofits that are part of the road program this year go into the MS4 reporting that we do with the DEP. And things like those basin retrofits allow the sediment to settle in the basins rather than getting flushed into the storm system. And besides pollutants, if you have too much dirt flowing into your waterways, that also starts clogging the system, and we work to minimize that as much as possible. So as much as our capital projects focus on addressing issues, it's really a community effort. Grading plans that come in and just any questions from residents that involve drainage and stormwater, we're happy to address and visit and take a look at. And I'll say that the township's residents really do a lot to help this as well. It starts kind of on a personal property basis, and it goes from there. So if you're taking care of some stormwater and managing that on your own site, it not only helps your property and your neighbor, it helps the folks that are beyond site downstream and really controls how much water is winding up into the stream at one time. So minimizing the use of pesticides, cleaning up after your pets, using compost methods instead of having everything go in the trash. These are all things that are a little bit to do, but it really goes a long way when it's a community effort. Just to touch upon this one, which we mentioned last year as well, but in the times we live, it's still very valid. A lot of these single-use things that we have nowadays with the gloves and masks especially, just being mindful of what we're putting in the drains. Again, our township staff does a lot to keep these things clear, keep our storm drains as clean as possible. But we can do as many capital projects as we'd like, but if they are clogged and don't function the way we want, we're kind of back to the issues that we had in the first place. So again, it's a community effort, but keeping it as functional as possible is the main goal of the MS4 program. And keeping them unclogged really helps keep the flooding and those kinds of issues to a minimum. There's always going to be events where things kind of have too much water at once and we have some flooding issues, but the projects that we do each year and things that the community does to keep our system as clean as possible really promotes having cleaner waterways. It promotes the system functioning well. And those are the things that we look to report to the DEP each year to show our progress towards making it a little better each time we go through the annual program. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, but we're happy to address any issues staff or residents have at any time.
Any questions for Mr. Kessler?
I just want to thank you for bringing the stormwater projects to us like you do and, spacing them out. I know it helps the residents, and it's good to know that it's helping the environment as well. So I know that we've really stepped up our stormwater management projects in the last couple of years, and a lot of credit to you, Mr. Kessler. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have an update. Could you just give an update on the Langhorne Gables project, where we are with that? I know they started down there, the progress.
Yep, that's a good question. They are making some good progress. I know the folks in that neighborhood, I'm sure, see them out there each day. The overall scope of the work is kind of in two phases. So they're just about done the first part, which is the new drains and sewers that go from Buttonwood, Longview up to Cypress, and it actually goes through the paper street that's between Cypress and Fernwood. That's about to completion, and then the next part will be replacing the culvert and some work around that stream stretch there on Willow Avenue. So the goal is they're scheduled to have everything wrapped up this summer, and have the goal of sometime towards the end of June. So they're making progress, and we appreciate everyone's patience that's in the area while they work through some of the streets.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Moving on to other business, Mr. Caparo. You have something for us?
I'll take it.
Ms. Teoli-Coles.
We have added to the agenda this evening for the board's consideration two resolutions, Resolution 21-16R and 21-17R, and they are both resolutions authorizing grant applications. The first is for a grant that we are applying for, a flood mitigation program grant for the Twin Oaks Park, and that would be for stormwater. It's a $250,000 grant that has a 15% match. The second is for a grant through the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program, and it is for the same amount, $250,000, with the same match, and it is for the Forsythia Trail Project. And so we would just ask the board to consider authorizing approval of those two resolutions. If we were successful in receiving those grant funds, you would see this in next year's budget.
They were numbers 16 and 17R, is that
Correct.
what you said? I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 16R and Resolution 17R.
I'll second.
Is there any board questions on these resolutions? Any public questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Mr. Kessler, you have anything?
Nothing further, thank you.
Mr. Esposito?
I do have just one announcement that the Board of Supervisors held an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss ongoing litigation matters. Nothing else for me.
Ms. Teoli Coles?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Kizak?
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Payne?
I had two things. I just wanted to let people know that walk-in appointments are available with the county for vaccinations. So if people are still looking to get vaccinated, you can just walk in now. And the other thing was about a year ago, we also declared the month of May in honor of Mr. Durant, who's passed away a year ago. And I just, now that things are getting back to sort of normal, I hope people are able to find a way to honor his memory by doing a random act of kindness or volunteering for an organization and finding a good way to give back to their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Quirrell?
Nothing. Thank you.
Ms. Strauss?
Nothing, thank you.
All right, I have a few things. June 1st, our staff here in the township will be vaccinated, and they'll be past the 2-week incubation period. So on June 1st, we will be opening our building back up to limited hours between 10 and 4, or 10 and 2 p.m. Sorry about that. For residents to walk in and get their permits, or if they need the township staff, you will still need to wear a mask, and you will still need to social distance and follow our guidelines. But June 1st, we will be opening the building back up. And then I would just like to recognize 2 of our residents. Yesterday, I had the honor of attending an Eagle Scout presentation for one of our residents, Bobby Blum, who earned his Eagle Scout by doing a project on a Presbyterian church. He refurbished the cross on the church, and it was an honor to be there to see him get the award. And I did invite him to come in for our June meeting so that he can be recognized by our township. And the other person I'd like to recognize is Blake Weaver. Blake is a conductor on the Amtrak, works for the Amtrak. But if you've seen the president come into Philadelphia last week through Amtrak, Blake was the person who introduced the president before he made his speech. He is a resident of the township, and whether you approve or disapprove of the president, it is an honor to be able to not only meet the president of the United States, but also to introduce him before he speaks. So I would just like to recognize Blake for what he did there too. So other than that, I have nothing else. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All right, we're adjourned. Thanks.